the forgotten childhood of Jesus, what really happened during his first 30 years. The hammer rises in the blood-red light just before dawn. It comes down. Stone chips scatter across calloused fingers. The young man never looks up. He says nothing. Around him, 20 other laborers are doing the exact same thing. Chopping, shaping, hauling, sweating in the early morning dust of a Roman construction site in a city called Sepphoris. The chisel rings against rock. A cat somewhere on the scaffolding cries out. A Roman soldier shouts something at a Greek merchant below. Nobody on that scaffolding knows who this young man is. Nobody understands that the hands gripping that chisel are the same hands that shaped every star in every galaxy. Nobody knows that the blade pressing into stone is the very subject the prophets had been writing about for 1,000 years. Nobody knows he is 28 years old. And nobody knows he has been doing this, exactly this, for 16 years. But what nobody on that scaffolding knows is the same thing that most Christians today have still never been told. The silent years of Jesus were never actually silent. They were a sermon. And what he was doing during those hidden decades is arguably the most important thing he ever did before he walked to the cross. This is the forgotten childhood of Jesus of Nazareth. The 30 years that the gospel writers almost refused to record. The decades the church has largely skipped over in Sunday sermons and nativity plays. And when you truly understand what happened during those years, everything you thought you knew about the life of Christ shifts beneath your feet. If this kind of deep dive into Scripture moves you, hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps reach more people who need to hear this. And if you want to keep walking through the life of Christ with us, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Let's go all the way back. A 9-year-old boy lifts a clay water vessel with both arms. The sun has not yet cleared the eastern ridge. The village is only beginning to stir. 2 older women are already at the communal well, lowering their jars, speaking in Aramaic about a neighbor's daughter set to be married next month. The boy waits his turn. He doesn't push. He doesn't demand. He has done this every single morning since he was old enough to carry a vessel without dropping it. This is one morning. But there were 10,000 mornings just like it. Nazareth was not a city. Archaeologists estimate the population at somewhere between 200 and 500 souls, a cluster of stone homes on a limestone hillside in Lower Galilee, a single synagogue, a communal grain grinding floor, everyone knowing everyone. The smell of wood shavings outside each home. The sound of a millstone. The taste of barley bread dipped in olive oil eaten quickly before heading into the fields. The ancient resonance of the Shema rising from behind every closed door each evening. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. This was the world that formed him. And when the first disciples began spreading his name, they would sometimes receive a response that landed like a slap. Can anything good come out of Nazareth? John 1 verse 46. The world meant it as a dismissal. But the world didn't know. The Hebrew root inside the very name Nazareth, Netzer, means branch. And in Isaiah 11 verse 1, written 700 years before this boy carried water in the pale morning light, the prophet declared, "There shall come forth a shoot from the stump of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots." The despised village was the prophecy. The name the world used to diminish him had been circled by God in the margins of Isaiah's scroll for 7 centuries. Archaeologists digging in and around Nazareth have found evidence of a deeply observant Jewish community. Ritual baths carved into the stone, household pottery consistent with dietary purity laws, a community that took the covenant seriously in a region that the rest of the Jewish world viewed as backward and provincial. This was not a village of casual religion. This was a place where the Shema was recited morning and evening without fail, where Sabbath was guarded like a treasure, where Torah was the framework of every conversation, every business transaction, every dinner table. Jesus grew up steeped in it, not as an observer, as a participant. But before Nazareth, there was Egypt. And before Egypt, there was a king who wanted him dead before he said his first word. He was not yet 2 years old when the soldiers came. The Magi had walked into Jerusalem in expensive garments and asked openly in the streets, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews?" Matthew 2 verse 2. They asked merchants. They asked gatekeepers. And Herod the Great heard it. Old paranoid Herod, who had already murdered his own wife and 3 of his sons rather than risk a rival. He heard the word king, and something ancient and dangerous moved behind his eyes. Joseph received a warning in a dream and did not wait until morning. A small limestone house in Bethlehem. Past midnight. The town silent. Joseph stuffing a travel sack with dried figs, a waterskin, salted meat, and the gold and precious gifts the Magi had left behind. Gifts that were, without anyone realizing it, the exact provision God had arranged to fund the escape of his own son. Mary lifting the sleeping infant, pressing him to her chest. The latch lifted slowly. The street empty. They disappeared into the darkness. The road to Egypt was more than 140 miles through desert terrain. Freezing nights. Jackals calling from the dark. The kind of road where a family of 3 could vanish and no one would find them. And while this small family walked into exile, Bethlehem was burning. When Herod realized the Magi had bypassed him, he ordered every male child 2 years old and younger in Bethlehem and the surrounding region to be put to the sword. In a village that small, every mother knew every child by name. Every boy had a particular laugh his family could identify from across the market. In one afternoon of Roman efficiency, every one of those boys was gone. Rachel is weeping for her children. Jeremiah had written centuries before, and she refuses to be comforted, because they are no more. That prophecy had been written about the Babylonian exile, about Jewish mothers watching their children marched off to a foreign land. But God embedded it in Scripture so that when the moment arrived in Bethlehem, anyone reading the story would understand. This horror is not happening outside the reach of divine knowledge. This was seen. It was written down. It was wept over in advance. And the Son of God, the reason this horror was happening, was asleep in his mother's arms on a desert road. Mary pulls him tighter as the desert wind cuts through her robe. How is this child supposed to save the world when I can barely keep him warm? They stayed in Egypt until Herod died. Matthew says this fulfilled Hosea's word, "Out of Egypt I called my son." The same nation that once enslaved Israel now sheltered the Messiah of Israel. Now, here is something almost every Sunday school lesson gets wrong. You have been told that Jesus was a carpenter. That is not what the Greek text actually says. Matthew 13 verse 55 calls him the son of the Tecton. Mark 6 verse 3 calls Jesus himself the Tecton. The word Tecton comes from a root meaning to build, to carve, to shape, but it is not limited to wood. It covers the full range of construction work. In 1st century Galilee, where quality timber was scarce and limestone was everywhere, a Tecton spent most of his working days outdoors, cutting stone blocks, hauling them up scaffolding, fitting them into walls with the kind of precision that meant if you got it wrong the whole structure suffered. The serene image from Renaissance paintings, a clean-handed man smoothly planing a wooden table in a warm sunlit shop, is a romantic invention that the 1st century construction site would have laughed at. The reality: thick arms, dense calloused hands that splinters couldn't penetrate, knees worn from kneeling on stone, back carrying the accumulated strain of years of manual labor 6 days a week. When Jesus later told his disciples to take up their cross daily, he understood physical burden not as metaphor but as daily lived reality. When he talked about the yoke being easy and the burden light, he was speaking as someone who had spent decades under a very heavy, very real yoke. He had likely cracked a rib or torn a muscle by his mid-20s. His sandals were worn thin from walking the 4 miles between Nazareth and Sepphoris and back every single day, for years. And Sepphoris was not a quiet village. It was the 30,000-person administrative capital of Galilee, being rebuilt essentially from scratch by Herod Antipas during the exact years Jesus was growing up. Roman-style mosaic floors. A theater cut into the hillside. An aqueduct system. tax collectors, Roman soldiers, Greek merchants, all moving through a city that represented everything about earthly power and empire that stood in contrast to the kingdom Jesus would one day announce. He built it with his hands, for wages, without a single miracle to make the work easier. 18 years. From age 12 to age 30. 18 years of 6-day work weeks. 18 years of rising before the sun. 6,570 days. Every single one a choice. Each morning he could have risen and revealed himself, and didn't. Each evening he could have broken the silence, and didn't. Each Sabbath, when he read from Isaiah and saw his own biography in a dead prophet's ink, he could have spoken a single sentence that would have stopped the synagogue cold. He didn't. For 6,570 days, the Son of God chose the chisel over the throne. And later, when he told the crowds that a wise man counts the cost before laying a foundation, he wasn't borrowing a metaphor from a textbook. It came from the calluses on his own hands. He knew the cost. He had paid it. In years. But the hardest day of those 18 years was not a workday. It was a day of loss. He was 12, and his mother lost him. The Passover pilgrimage from Nazareth to Jerusalem was approximately 100 miles by the eastern route. 4 to 7 days of walking in massive caravans, entire villages traveling together. Men with men, women, and children in a separate group. At 12, a Jewish boy stood on the threshold of religious adulthood, old enough to walk with the men, young enough that Mary still assumed he was somewhere nearby. That assumption cost her 3 days. When the caravan stopped for the night on the road home, Mary asked the women around her if they had seen him. They hadn't. Joseph asked the men. They hadn't. They turned around and retraced the entire day's journey back to Jerusalem, then spent 2 more days searching a crowded Passover city of tens of thousands. They found him in the temple, seated among the teachers, listening to them and asking questions. Luke 2 verse 46. That is the precise posture of a rabbinical student, receiving, engaging with intellectual humility. And the teachers were not just mildly interested. They were astonished, because this 12-year-old's grasp of Torah and prophecy was operating on a level they had never encountered in anyone. Mary, flooded with relief and residual terror, says, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been searching for you in great distress." Luke 2 verse 48. And the boy looks at her and says the most theologically weighted words ever spoken by a child. "Why were you searching for me? Did you not know that I must be about my Father's business?" Luke 2 verse 49. Most people hear defiance. There is none. He is opening a window, just briefly, letting her glimpse what he has been carrying alone since he was old enough to understand who he was. And then here is the part that reframes everything. The boy who spoke those words stood up, dusted the limestone off his tunic, and walked home with them. The Greek word in Luke 2 verse 51, hupatasso, translated "he was subject to them," is a military term meaning to deliberately arrange oneself under authority. It is the same word Paul uses to describe how all of creation is arranged in submission beneath Christ. And here, at 12, the actual king of all creation chose to place himself under the authority of a carpenter and a teenage girl for 18 more years. Jesus did not stay in the temple. He could have. He had the knowledge, the authority, the divine right. The elders were astonished by him. He could have begun his ministry that afternoon. He didn't. He looked at his mother's tear-streaked face and understood. Not yet. They are not ready. I am not finished. And he walked home. Somewhere in those 18 silent years, a heavy shadow fell over the household. Joseph disappears from Scripture. His name appears one last time at the temple incident when Jesus is 12. He is not at Cana. He is not at the cross. When Jesus, dying, looks down and entrusts his mother's care to the disciple John, not to Joseph. Scholars near universally conclude Joseph died during these hidden years. We don't know the year. But there was a day. A small home in Nazareth. The smell of cedar prepared for burial. A silent procession through narrow stone streets. A tomb cut into the hillside. A stone rolled into place. His brothers, James, Joseph, Simon, Judas, standing behind their oldest brother, waiting for him to say something that would make this make sense. Jesus said nothing. James never forgot that silence. It would surface again and again in James's life in ways he could never have predicted. And Jesus could have spoken 3 words and Joseph would have walked out of that tomb alive. He could have given Mary her husband back. The author of life could have rewritten the story in an instant. He didn't. He went home. He picked up the chisel. He went back to work the next morning. Because the family needed bread. Because James was still a child. Because Mary needed her son to stay. Because the author of a story does not skip the chapters that are hard to read. He writes them with particular care, because those are the chapters that teach the reader how to survive their own. Think about what that grief looked like in practical terms. There was no social security, no pension, no safety net. In first-century Galilean culture, a widow's survival depended almost entirely on the oldest son stepping into the provider role. And the oldest son in this household did exactly that. Rising before dawn, walking 4 miles to a Roman construction site, swinging a hammer for 12 hours, walking 4 miles back, eating a simple meal, sleeping, rising, and doing it again. Not once. Not twice. 4 years. The Son of God managed a household budget. He knew what things cost. He knew what it felt like to hand over coins at the end of a week and realize the numbers barely stretched. He knew what it meant to work harder when the family needed more, and to go without when there wasn't enough to go around. The bread of heaven went out each morning to earn daily bread for his widowed mother. The light of the world walked home in the dark because he was working late on a Roman wall for a day's wage. And every miracle he could have performed, he postponed. Every revelation that would have moved Israel to its foundations, he sealed behind his teeth for 18 more years. This is the chapter of the Christmas story that no carol ever sings. The Son of God did not save the world primarily by leaving heaven. He saved the world by staying on earth, staying in the village, staying in the workshop, staying in the silence. The hidden years were not preparation for the mission. The hidden years were the mission. Every day he chose hiddenness, he chose us. Every day he chose the chisel, he chose us. And then one morning, he put the chisel down for the last time. The timing was not accidental. Numbers 4:3 required Levitical priests to be 30 before entering full public service. Joseph stood before Pharaoh at 30. Genesis 41 verse 46. David was anointed king at 30. 2 Samuel 5 verse 4. Ezekiel received his vision of the divine throne at 30. Ezekiel 1 verse 1. If Jesus had launched his ministry at 20, the elders of Israel would have dismissed him as a presumptuous boy. But at 30, the precise legal age for priestly service, the age at which the great leaders of Israel stepped into their defining roles, every cultural objection was preemptively answered before he said a single public word. The Father wasn't slow. The Father was waiting for the hour. And then the hour arrived. The Jordan River runs cold and dark in early spring. The snowmelt from the hills of Galilee keeps the water near freezing even on warm mornings. The banks are packed with people who have traveled from across the region to hear a voice that sounds like something ancient finally being said out loud again, because there had been 400 years of prophetic silence in Israel. 400 years without a prophet, without a public word from heaven, without a burning bush or a vision of a throne. And then John came out of the wilderness, and something in the Jewish world felt the air change. A wild-eyed prophet stands knee-deep in the current, pointing at everyone who approaches. Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Matthew 3 verse 2. Tax collectors are in the line. Roman soldiers, Pharisees who came to observe and found themselves unable to leave. John stops mid-sentence. His arm drops. The crowd doesn't understand why. They follow his gaze. A man is walking along the bank. Plain tunic. Sandals thick with road dust. Not announced. No procession. Just a man stepping out from within a crowd that had no idea he was standing among them. But John knows. John, who had leaped in his mother's womb the moment Mary walked through the door 30 years earlier. John, who spent his entire adult life in the wilderness calling out, "He is coming," for 30 years. And now he is here. The water rises to Jesus's waist. John's hand trembles as it touches his shoulder. Down. Into the cold. Into the dark. 16 years of stone dust lift from his skin in the current. The marks of the chisel on his hands carried downstream into the river of Israel. Light. And the heavens, sealed in prophetic silence for 400 years, since the last word of the last prophet, open. A presence descends. A voice speaks out loud in the hearing of everyone on the bank. "This is my Son, in whom I am well pleased." Matthew 3 verse 17. Well pleased. Hold that phrase. Sit with it for a moment. Because the cross had not happened yet. The miracles were still ahead. The Sermon on the Mount had not been delivered. Lazarus was still alive and going about his daily life in Bethany. Peter was still just a fisherman with a boat and a temper. Judas was still an ordinary man walking ordinary streets. Not one defining act of the public ministry had taken place. And the Father was already completely, unreservedly, publicly pleased. He was pleased with 30 years of obscurity, pleased with 16 years of cutting stone in a Roman city, pleased with the 12-year-old who walked away from the temple with his mother, pleased with the teenager who buried his father and went back to work the next morning without complaint, pleased with the man who fed his widowed mother in secret for years, concealing his own identity for the sake of a world that had no idea what was being done for them in the quiet. Not pleased despite the hidden years. Pleased with the hidden years. The obscurity wasn't something to be endured until the real work started. The obscurity was part of the work. The Father looked at those 30 years of silence and anonymity and said, "This is exactly what I asked for, and it is good." That changes everything about how you read what comes next. And it changes everything about how you read your own life. And so here is the question this story leaves you with. What if your hidden years are not a delay? What if they are the work itself? Somewhere right now, in a room where no one is watching, in a season that feels like it has been going on far longer than makes sense, you are doing something. Praying words that seem to hit the ceiling. Making choices no one applauds. Staying faithful to a calling that has produced no visible result and attracted no public recognition. Perhaps you have been doing this for years and wondering if anyone, if God Himself, has even noticed. He has. And He is not just tolerating your quiet faithfulness while waiting for you to do something more impressive. He is pleased with it. The same word used at the Jordan applies to every invisible act of obedience you have ever offered in a room where no one was watching. The Father sees it. The Father is pleased with it. Just as He was pleased with a young man fitting stone into a Roman wall at dusk in Sepphoris, 16 years before anyone in heaven or on earth would speak His name in recognition. Tell me your Nazareth in the comments below. One word, one phrase. The season or the place where you feel hidden right now. The work that no one sees. Subscribe if you want to keep walking through the life of Christ together. Turn on the bell. We go deep every week, and these are the details most people never encounter. Share this with someone in their own silent season. Someone who needs to hear that silence is not abandonment. That hidden is not forgotten. That obscure is not overlooked. Because the world calls them lost years. But nothing about these years was lost. Every strike of the hammer. Every silent Sabbath, every dawn walked into in a small village that had no idea the King of the universe was standing at their well. He chose every one of those days. He chose them for you.